Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. After big questions were raised just the other day about Envoy on Toronto Ultra after a series of scrims they played against the FaZe back team, they've now played against OpTic over the last couple of days, and OpTic have actually released the comms from one of these games, very briefly indeed, onto the timeline last night. If you have a look at the scoreboard, you can see that again, Envoy is not having the best time. OpTic seemingly adding fuel to the fire of the narratives around Envoy lately, that this might just not be his particular title. Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, Boston only, 19 days away now. Very excited for it. It was a great event last. If you guys want to attend, I'm sure tickets and all this stuff are still available. Single day, 4-day passes, all this good stuff. I'm going to be there in person. All the Breaking Point boys are going to be there in person. It's going to be a great time. Couple of stats to run through as well. This is so far two of the, theoretical, you would expect these two to be MVP candidates. It shouldn't be a massive surprise, the numbers that we're seeing here. And I know that Dashy, his first series had like a 0.9 or something, and I know a lot of people were saying that that's going to be one of the worst series Dashy has all year. Turns out that has been the case so far. Dashy has a 1.2, Cell has a 1.26. Cell's numbers are just so undeniable. Like, even if you don't notice Cell like on the map, he just always ends up with a KD looking something like this. So kind of interesting to look at the damage per 10 as well, just because, who's being more aggressive, who's playing a little bit slower, like as Cellium quite often does. So there's a bit of a differential here between KD and then damage, because, a guy like Priestahh, massive damage dealer, you'd probably expect his KD to be a bit lower as a result, because you're, playing a bit more aggressive in general. Search and destroy damage per round, currently that's definitely going Cellium's way, but to be fair, Shotzzy's been doing a killer job with the search and destroy for OpTic, so there aren't too many extra kills to go around when Shotzzy has like a 1.7 in search and destroy. We did of course talk about the Rule Ravens the other day and the fact that Octane reckons that these guys are trash and they might well need to blow it up in the very near future. For now they're still going to stick it out, but yeah, their next few games are going to determine a lot, I think. I think they play Rocker next, which is a massive series. Whoever loses that team or whoever loses that series, I can't imagine they're going to keep their team until basically in February. I think they're one of those teams is going to be gone, I would imagine, in terms of what the current starting rosters are. But as Doug Leby says, Gwyn stands out on this plot compared to, I guess, his competition. These are the numbers that he pulled off. So this is impact rating. And I'll show you guys the plot here actually in a second, but his overall numbers are like a 0.92 or something in terms of impact. But in the maps they won against Vegas, you can see how, important that was. But unfortunately for the Ravens, everyone else they've played, they've basically got slammed against. So against OpTic, it was not a pretty time. But yeah, you can see Gwyn here on this stats here from Money Hill Stats, player KD distribution per team. So just by comparison, it's kind of interesting to see where some of the players are. Certain teams have, well, like let's say the Thieves, all their players are on a pretty similar number, which is a similar story to last year and the year before. Let's say when they won in Vanguard Thieves, all their players were like a 1.05. So it was a similar trend to this, but yet instead of at a 0.9, they were at a 1.05, which was obviously a pretty big deal. Now, as we can see, Ravens here, it's not looking good for Carolina, but Gwyn is at least up here in the positive, and it's maybe not a massively dissimilar story right now for the Seattle Surge. OpTic are all in the positive quite impressively, so Miami are kind of all over the place actually, and then we've got FaZe with Simp and Cell up here, and then aBeZy and Drazah back at a 1.0. So yeah, definitely will be interesting to keep an eye on this, because the way that certain teams set up their rosters will determine how this develops going forward. Even Los Angeles Guerrillas have a pretty tight grouping here, and well, there's certain teams like Vegas, like Minnesota, like Ravens, that have one player that's, not having the best time at the moment. But of course, we will talk about Toronto in a few minutes' time here, and we'll see Envoy's numbers. He's currently sitting at a 0.9 or so, and if you look at these Toronto situations, in some ways it's not massively dissimilar to what happened last year, but, really it was CleanX and Insights more like a 1.0, 1.05, maybe CleanX slightly negative. Scrappy was the one at like a 1.15, 1.2, and then it was Hixie who was kind of in Envoy's position now. So we'll see if you guys think there's anything to that over the coming minutes here, given that, it's the same team, but with Envoy for Hixie this season. This is OpTic's team pack. I showed you guys the Miami one. I showed you guys the FaZe one over the last couple of days. This is what they've got again. Look, it's kind of nice. The logos are here. It's the same thing as usual. It's not, you know, not massively impressing me. I just wish that the ones they put on for, the ones they created for the CDL was like the best stuff, you know? If the competitive stuff was the best stuff, in the same way that when Riot do, let's say the Valorant World Championship, I'm not so familiar with like League of Legends and stuff, but for Valorant Worlds, the skins they release for that particular event that are like ridiculously expensive are always fire, like they're always the one that people want at the time. So they absolutely rake in the money from it, and then some of it, well, I think half of it gets redistributed to the teams, which helps the teams actually sustain some potential degree of profitability. I don't know, it just makes so much sense when you make these better, but at least they exist, I guess. We can take some sort of positive from it. So, a couple of scrims from yesterday. FaZe Black played Surge. I think we actually saw FaZe Black in a Twitch chat talk about it, but I believe they went like 5-3 against Surge. We know that FaZe Black have done well. They, well, had a good time against the Ravens the other day. They had a pretty decent time against the Toronto Ultra the other day, and now they're playing Surge. So, yeah, what do you guys think the future of this Surge team is? Like, it's only scrims at the end of the day, and I'll just find one with deaths here rather than latency. So, this is one example here on the Skid Row where, well, we can see the overall numbers when, okay, they lost this one, Illy and co took the victory here. But, yeah, Surge, they had a good start to the season. They looked pretty good early on. Illy was just a monster for the first series or two. Is that going to be maintainable? Again, by the numbers, Illy does seem to be one of the more standout players. I mean, here he is 26 and 18 for a 250-249 victory here on the Invasion. So, yeah, lots to say really on this Surge team, whether they can maintain this level, but also if, as we talked about earlier today, aBeZy's been abusing the auto tactical sprint or the single tap sprint, then maybe that was some degree of advantage, maybe a quite significant advantage that Surge now no longer have in their back pocket. But at the same time, even if he then turned it off, you would probably expect, you know, him to just improve over time anyway. Now, okay, I think they pretty much split the hard points, but they then played 3 maps of control, and they actually won FaZe back all of these control games. So Surge's control so far has been like reasonable enough. It's not been a notable standout game mode for them. But yeah, FaZe Black, of course, arguably, probably really the best team in challenges, especially because they're getting all this good practice. Like, it's kind of funny how it works. Temp's team, there's Houston Spartans or whatever, they were getting like a lot of good practice against pro teams a while ago, but now, let's say teams like FaZe, every time they play Temp's team, they slam them. Like, it's not even pretty. There was a scoreboard the other day that was 250-26 on the Skid Row, and I'm sure FaZe, Atlanta FaZe, have realised, well, probably not really worth scrimming these guys, but FaZe Black are seemingly good practice, and therefore they're actually a competitive team against some of the pro teams, and therefore the pro teams want to scrim them more, and therefore FaZe Black get better, and therefore more pro teams want to play against them, and therefore they get better. So it's kind of a beneficial, like, recurring cycle for them. But yeah, FaZe Black won all the controls here, the High Rise, the Invasion, and the Karachi up against Seattle Surge. So, you know, it's only scrims at the end of the day, but we have seen FaZe Black scrims as well elsewhere, especially when it comes down to playing against Toronto the other day, that really kick-started some talks about Envoy. So far this season, Envoy was fine. The first, like, 2 series that Ultra played, there were really no talks about Envoy at all. He was looking good as normal. The Boston series, people were like, what's going on here? How has Envoy dropped to 0.49? Because it was an absolute stinker. Octane was roasting him, and we thought, okay, there's no way, it's just an outlier series, right? And I'd still expect it to be an outlier series, but maybe there's slightly more to that than meets the eye. So ever since that Boston series, people have been keeping a closer eye on Envoy, and especially when this happens last night. So JP Krez, analyst, kind of coach guy, okay, not Karma head coach, but still, he's over there at OpTic, and he reveals this from the scrims they played up against Toronto. So just a funny moment. Here they are playing Karachi control, and OpTic are on the defensive side, Ultra are on the attacking side. It's 1-1 at this point, and it's looking like a pretty good lockdown at this point from OpTic as it goes. Now, I think Shotzzy makes a call out. I don't exactly know what he was trying to call out, like demon or something, and but, you know, Pred misheard him, and then they had a pretty funny back and forth. So, funny clip for sure, but what people were focusing on really was the fact that, you know, the scoreboard is quite evident. I thought they might have done here what Doug does, which is, well, what Doug tried to do, which is when he put out a scoreboard, he would block it outright or pixelate it or blur it out so you couldn't see who they're playing against. OpTic didn't, you know, bother doing that, right? They just tweeted out, and there's no problem, I think, doing this. It's not revealing any crazy information as to the respective teams, but given all the talks around Envoy, this certainly doesn't help his case.
Oh, what's wrong? Scrappy's dead. Push it.
Nice up. We should let them cap it. Let's go.
They're in Demon. There's 1p3.
He's just,
They're in Damon? I just got checked.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
they're the demon.
Huh? Regain.
Don't worry, Damon.
Back left scrap. He's a little weak.
Yo,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's do that.
left.
They're going useless.
That
Quick.
is too good.
One more.
I'm
What the
challenging.
f, Ken? One more.
I'm challenging.
Scrap's on the left
Wait,
somewhere.
one shot crap on the wall.
Crap on the wall.
There, Damon.
They're in Damon.
He get close,
Wait.
Ace one close, Damon.
And
Show
he's
Damon.
literally in wall. I left mid.
Back right here,
I'm
too.
gonna you guys up.
Useless.
Yeah.
So as we can see here in the top left-hand corner, I guess I'll just make it so you can actually kind of fully see what's going on. Envoy 9 and 19. I think it was 8 in 17, 8 and 18, ends up 9 and 19. Now, look, this is just one screenshot from one map in this scrim. It's possible that Envoy was absolutely frying all the other maps and was double positive every map. But it's just, you know, funny how it works out, right? That the one screenshot that was really taken from this scrim set, that of course is totally behind the scenes. You know, we don't usually get to see any of it unless there's funny moments in which sometimes the team will put publicly. I don't think there's any real issue doing it. It's not like they're revealing crazy information with this minimap up, but still Envoy hammers to be double negative again. And the fact, of course, that Envoy was previously on OpTic and he was potentially linked to joining OpTic again this season. Realistically, I don't ever think that Pred was going to be, you know, going anywhere. I think Pred was always going to be their man, but Envoy was linked. You know, people talked to Envoy and Drazah. Could that be a thing with OpTic? And that never happened. Of course, he ends up going to Toronto. So, you know, look, is there anything to this? As I say, it's one screenshot from one scoreboard, but it's now becoming a bit of a more consistent trend, right? Obviously, Shotzzy tweets about it as well. Knowing full well that Envoy is double negative on the other team, you know, like they could have tried to, you know, cover this up somehow, and they didn't bother, and I don't think there's any problem with it, but it is just adding to this narrative at the moment that Envoy's having a tough time. I mean, we saw some scrims the other day against Toronto, and, okay, this is one with actual deaths. Envoy here's 13 in 29, so, you know, it's just been a theory over the last few days that maybe Envoy's not having the best time on this game, and that could be two ways. Either it could be Envoy just isn't super comfortable right now as it stands. These are just the overall team numbers for the season so far. Is he just not so comfortable on this game? Is he like getting in his own head? I don't really know. Or could it be some sort of, you know, team structure issue with Toronto in the sense that, you know, Hicksy, sure, he had a 0.85, 0.9 last season, and that was good enough to win an event to make the grand finals of the World Championship. Theory was, get the upgrade in, Envoy comes through, they're going to be better. But, well, maybe it's just the way the team is structured that there aren't so many kills to go around. I don't know. I think we're going to need more series to really understand and determine if there's anything going on here. But I guess the more likely explanation for all of these screenshots we're seeing is just that Envoy just isn't that good at this game, which, you know, is obviously a pretty big deal if that continues to be true for quite some time to come. So very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just a couple of things to mention, you know, I thought was really cool stuff from Clay. I know that lots of pros have been trying, especially around the new year, to, you know, get off the vape, really. Obviously, lots of guys are still on it, but Clay reckons that it's best for him, best for his health to get rid of it. So as he says, if I can do it, so can you. Can't believe it's been almost 3 weeks, no nicotine vape after using one for a decade. Feel like I've broken the habit, but the craving is still. I think people say that, like, you get to 3 weeks, roughly, then you're in a good spot. So Clay is very nearly there, 18 days, I guess 19 days, potentially 20 days by now. So, you know, pretty much 3 weeks. So, you know, awesome for Clay, happy for him, as long as he can keep this going. And maybe no vape Clay is going to be absolutely frying this upcoming season, but very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.